Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Dickensia, also known as Technabbit, and here we are on, let me just show you guys, I am on day 8 of this account, and thanks to my luck of pulling Muwi, I have actually cleared Wyvern 13 already on auto. It's not all maxed out yet. I don't have nearly enough charms, or surprisingly, I haven't farmed enough gear to max out all the gear yet. So, like, some of them are still not even at level 9 enhanced for some of the pieces. And I definitely don't have the catalyst to max out my skills yet. So, I think the auto rates earlier I saw was like close to 50-50, maybe 60%, which is not bad considering the only one with effectiveness really is Furious. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys a run of it clearing. I'm probably going to be recording other teams that are usable later throughout the week as I find time, and then try and unload them all together. I did want to show you guys those teams using gear from this account, but considering the requirements, it might take a few months, so instead I'll just use my main account and try and limit my gear to be something reasonable, maybe give some advice on what you could buy. Alright, let's hop into it. Okay, so we're just gonna go in with the recommended team here. This is the most valuable, like, challenge to town. It's a budget team you can use for Wyvern. Super consistent, super obtainable, mainly because everyone except Muwi's free. Muwi's a 3-star, but if you're like me and a lot of other people, you might never get these 3 stars until it's way too late or way down the line. But thankfully, this alt account is super lucky, so I'll take it. I have 2 moves actually, so he has a little effectiveness because I concentrated him to try and up the odds. For the most part, it's just follow the tuning on the budget guide. I'll be showing that later. Everyone got really lucky about HP rolls, so I'm not too worried about them dying. Mont mode just needs to keep them up a little. And then I'm trying out one of the old artifacts I used to use for this Envoy's Pipe, and I'll see how that goes. I know Egg of Delusion, another 3 stars recommended. Megara's Tome. It's a pretty solid 4-star, really good for cycling, so she gets more healing. And then the guild artifact, Proof of Valor, like, as good as that is, that's like 900 armbands to take away from like a PvP unit to put onto a PvE unit, so it's like, I mean, the artifacts are something you can bite the bullet on moving with maybe 25k gold at a time. And you're farming Wyvern a lot. Well, I don't know. Early on, you're probably not going to PvP too much anyway. But again, it's 900 armbands from the guild, so it's probably like 2-3 months worth of farming, especially in the beginning, maybe even closer to 4 or 5. And you just look at all these, this is a very lucky run, all the debuffs are up, so they're just tearing through Wyvern before their first barrier phase. Yeah, this is a space team. To go if it gets a defense break here. Nope. What about Muwi? No. This should be fine. Sigret's S3 penetrates defense based on number of debuffs, so there we go. And that's it. Okay. As you just saw, this team did manage to beat Wyvern 13 this early. So I'm just going to show you what I currently have for a little after I show you my team. I'm just going to put up the guide someone made for like the bare minimum gear and requirements to like maximize your farming for Wyvern, like min-max kind of budget build. So let's see. So I did max my Sigret's Daydream Joker. I did pull an extra copy, so I did manage to get it to 30. All my artifact charms went in. This is an extra equipment from Hall of Trials. I got lucky. It only took me one buying chance to get this one, the bleed chance up for S1. It is recommended to max this out, so get it to +4, so you have like a 70% bleed chance on S1, which also applies to the S1 follow-up on S2 when it procs. So you should go 4, 4 here, so you get 100. And then it's up to you if you want to upgrade S3 since it's damage. Yeah, my damage. Honestly, the gear didn't roll terribly, and it's more speed than I'd like, and definitely more HP than I'd like if you see these pieces over here. Oh man, my Sigret has like no effectiveness. You need 65%, I have 27. My crit's way up, my HP is way up, but you know what, survivability is kind of nice on occasion. Eventually I'll get these to +4, I just don't have the resources right now. My Montmo, I will finish the skill tree once I'm done doing Wyvern enough times. Here's Envoy's Pipe. I haven't leveled it yet. I think it goes up 1% every 3 ranks. Yeah, at 1% every 3 ranks, so at +15 it'll be at 15% damage reduction. And then I do need to convert this to effective resist eventually, but So, as I said, Wyvern has 80 effective resist. In PvE, monsters have that plus 100 for their effectiveness, roughly. I believe, or at least the required amount of effective resist would be that plus 100, because they have the same amount of effectiveness as effective resist. So, Wyvern has like an 100% chance to proc their strip and knockback when they auto attack you or whatever on their turn, and then the 80% on top of it from their effective resist. So to completely negate it, you need about 180% effect resist, so then none of your buffs will get pulled off, and you can resist the knockback, so you only get pushed up if you have something like Muwi or General Purgus. For Montmo, I mean, eventually, this is a lot of HP. I feel like I could afford to cut it down later. But it is recommended to at least max your S3 because this is your biggest heal. S2, not really a big deal, but I mean, might as well. S1 is like, well, the sleep doesn't matter, and the damage definitely doesn't matter on Montmo. This is just all the free HP set you get from, I think this is the day 5 set. Sigret is using the hunt set, I want to say. Yeah, the Montmorancy gear is not too bad. I still haven't maxed it. Kind of praying I avoid crit, but honestly, very good. And then of course the MVP of the team, in my opinion. This is, I'm so glad I pulled them and I managed to get a second one. So they have a little effectiveness. I do just have them on Daydream Joker as a sub DPS. I did get the effect chance all the way up for S3. I did have those catalysts. I get effect chance on S1. I will have probably eventually maxed it just for damage sake, because damage is important here. Unfortunately, using the I think this is the gear set you get from the hunt. No. Sigret has the hunt event one. Muwi's got the free one you get from Adventurer's Path, I think. And as you can see, I also got a lot of HP over here. I thought this is the Automaton Tower reward. It's a 78 ring. I don't know what this maxes out at, but it might be like borderline enough to get to 65, which is good enough. Like the stats don't really matter on this, since Furious takes care of most of our stat need, or Furious's S2 and Muwi's S2 takes care of almost all our needs. And then I did say in the other episode that I got really lucky on the artifact. This is my random artifact for my login bonus. The best in slot artifact for Furious in this, and for other one-shot or other ranger supports like Leo for hunts. 75% chance to add targeted, which is, I believe, 15% bonus damage when it's on, which is huge. An extra debuff and damage. And then the guide doesn't actually mention this, because Furious got extra equips recently. So I just figured I'd grab the one to increase burn chance on S1. I think it like maxes out at 60% now, which is not bad. I mean, to think that this used to be like a 35% chance when max is kind of terrible to think about. And then S1 or S2, get it as low as you can. It's always a perfect cycle if you get their cooldowns down. I'm probably gonna do the min-max thing and hold off until he's max friendship to finish this. Like 90% decrease defense chances, like I'm accepting those odds, honestly. let me see. If it's so at 100%, it's an 85. At 90% chance, it's a 76% chance. So 9%, not too bad. You know, I mean, you're gonna until you make one of the permanent like 100% ER, ignoring teams like I use on my main account. Like this is fine. And then I haven't maxed out his gear yet. God, I got so much HP, but that's fine. HP is kind of important for this. And then these are the Espa boots. Like, these are the only speed boots. So I think the guide is going to show you buy this ring, and then use 3 speed set pieces, and then it's literally any speed boots you can get. He has some threshold above Muwi, and then I'll go over it later. But yeah, that's the bare minimum I have. I'm gonna discuss some other options while I flash it up on the page on the screen now. And then I'm gonna see if I can actually gear it on this account, but I'll be honest, of how little gear I actually have, it's probably gonna be a few weeks if I try to do that, so I'm just gonna try and make like bare minimum ones on my main account and show those off. Okay. So I'm gonna do a quick run with my backup old school team, quote unquote old school. I tried my best to try and recreate what I would have at the beginning. So the basics of this comp are really similar, except now you need some speed. Well, this team doesn't have any speed either, but now you'll probably need some speed to increase the consistency, like way back in the old days before Muwi. And if you don't have a General Purgus is definitely an option, but I didn't want to go make it too complicated. Like a Moonlight 4-star is kind of hard to come by. So, but Crozet is free. Clarissa is a common 4-star ice unit. I think she's the most consistent in this slot, which is why I'm showcasing her now. There are 2 alternatives. One that you're guaranteed to have, and the other is another 3-star you can pull. So if you don't have Muwi, you'll probably have the other 3-star. I didn't show it in a video because I didn't want to gear 3 times. But there's Misty Chain, which is a 3-star, has like a decent damage amount, has debuffs on S2, and it's like a little sustain for Crozet. So the basis of this team, well, I got really lucky, I'll be honest, because that first wave kind of ate all my abilities, and in general, you want Furious to be able to take a turn before Wyvern, or before moving on to Wyvern, so he has S2 into S3 to go into Wyvern after Wyvern attacks for the first turn. If Furious gets too fast and goes before Wyvern, and you don't get those debuffs, Wyvern no longer guarantees to attack your first unit. So you want to be just slow enough to be behind Wyvern, but just fast enough to be ahead of everyone in cycle. And then you need all the debuffs. I'm trying to remember. I haven't had to actually care about debuffs in a while. I believe it's supposed to be 3, but 2 works for Wyvern to always attack your tank. So Clarissa here supports with defense break on S1 and S3, and bleeds on S3, and then I gave her the extra equip for bleeds on S1. I'll go into that a bit more when we go over the gear. The big thing of Crozet over Montmorancy is he's basically, like, he's almost invincible for the time you need him. And he offers attack down. And I believe Sigret actually finishes it here. Fence break targeted S3, yeah, easy finish. And then we'll just hop into the gear explanation. Okay, as you can see, that alternative team did just fine. I figured instead of spending like a month getting the gear on my ult, I just tried to scrounge up like mostly free and obtainable gear, like realistic gear on my main. Since I also already have the units built. So you don't need remotely as much investment in Sigret as I have on my main account. Whatever you saw in the other video or in the other run on my ult is fine. See, this is mostly, I mean, these rolled really well in. This is a reforge thing. You don't need that crit damage. That's just extra. Just gonna show. So this is all gear you get for free. I think this is Adventurer's Path, and then this is the Hunt. And then of course you just need the extra equip for bleed chance. I do have a max Daydream Joker on her because, well, you're given one, you might as well use it. Let me see, where are the others? Too many. Okay, so Crozet is a free knight you get, and all of this gear is free. It costs quite a bit of honor or arena crust. So the big thing is, Wyvern has roughly like 100 effectiveness. I think it's actually like 180 something, but or like 80 something, but it's above because 180 effective resist doesn't actually block it. So 200-ish. So you want to get as much effect resist as you can if you get lucky. Like this ring just straight up gives you 65, so it's not bad. And then I think these are each like 540 each. Let me see. No. So as of the recording, because as seasons go by, older PvP sets get cheaper. These effective resist pieces are currently 1080 crests. These HP ones are, this HP one is 1620. And then the rest are all from your hunt event, I believe. I'm pretty sure all three of these are hunt event ones. The big thing is, Crozet just needs his abilities off. You can max out your barrier. So when anyone is 50% or lower, he gives them a massive barrier that scales based on the target's max HP. So if it's on him, like on Wyvern, it's huge, and then increase defense. And then of course he has a chance to decrease attack, which is another debuff on Wyvern. Unlike Montmorancy, who only has sleep, and sleep doesn't affect the Wyvern. And then as you can see, I got pretty lucky. Like getting this much ER is really unrealistic, I'll be honest. Like 150 is more than enough if you honestly can reach it. This artifact saves like a crazy amount of gearing. Like as your health goes, I think at like 50%, this gives you something like 50%. I forgot what the thresholds are, but this thing just makes him literally unkillable by Wyvern unless you go into like a second barrier phase. And see, where's the final one? And of course Furious. I don't think I have the 70 gear anymore, so I just scrounged around a bunch of like random speed pieces that had like some semblance of speed, but remember, you just need the speed set. This ring alone does all the work, covers all the stats you need on Furious. You can just slap any speed boots on. Like I think I'm using the Espa collab one on my ult. This one's just an injury one. You can, I don't know how many. I think like the immunity sets in the PvP shop for like 540 honor crests. So that's basically it. Pretty much just make them the same as the one in the alt account. There are a few speed break points. Like you'll notice I didn't really get many attacks in on the Wyvern. So you want to be at like, it's a really old school method, like without Muwi. So let me see if I have Sigret. Okay. So you need at least 147 or so speed to get 2 laps into the shield phase, I believe. And to be able to get one every attack, you need, what was it, 196 to get an extra one for both the shield and the attack phases. So eventually, like, I don't know, my Sigret has no effectiveness. I would love to get effectiveness, maybe replace this with one of the automaton rings, and then get like speed boots at some point, because you don't need any crits at all. So more speed, more effectiveness will always help you. And the same with Clarissa. I use Clarissa here because, well, Clarissa comes with a defense break, and you can get an extra equip that gives her a chance to bleed. While I would love to be able to use her one, she has another extra equip that increases her defense break from 50 to 65%. The chance of having an 100% chance to bleed, which is really 85 because of innate effective resist. Chance to apply 2 debuffs is just huge every time she S1s. And then her S3 is, of course, 2 bleeds and a defense break. And it's good. It's low cooldown. She can AoE the first wave if she kills something, but honestly, the whole first wave RNG is probably gonna be the bane of like your hunt at the beginning of the games, like mid game, I would say. Aside from that, yeah, like anything else you can get as a plus. She is a 4-star, so unfortunately, like She's probably the most premium of the options if you don't have a Muwi comp going. But she does have replacements I'm going to show you in the next video. Or not next video, next clip, sorry. And then here's the alternative. I unfortunately don't have a regular Alexa to show off, but I'm like 90% sure regular Alexa is actually better in this comp in particular. Like, if I had Clarissa, I'd probably replace Sigret with Alexa and use Clarissa instead. But Summertime Alexa has a lot more cycling than regular Alexa and does a lot more damage, so it kind of messes up this first wave. I'm recording all my voiceovers after the battles happen, so I'm pretty sure this run got really lucky, like absurdly lucky on Wyvern. So let's just continue. Furious, of course, is equally as geared as I showed him in the other one, roughly, I think. With all the random gear I found in my main to try and simulate it. He's slightly faster. That's it. But the speed doesn't matter. Sigret is probably a lot stronger than the one on my other account, just because my Sigret is fully invested. Yeah, here. Crozet did not have his S2 up going into Wyvern. Furious didn't have any cooldown, so he burned him once. No attack down from Crozet. Alexa S3s, which means no other debuffs either. Sigret doesn't get a bleed. This Wyvern could have wiped me here, but he ends up attacking the tank. So, if you have regular Alexa, or your team doesn't dual attack like mine did, or dual attack or follow up or whatever, you'll probably have a more consistent opening like this turn, and then everyone goes and Wyvern would be at like 50%. And then Crozet enters his like immunity phase because of his shield defense up combo. Now everyone just keeps chipping in. Ideally in these kind of teams, like for Wyvern, you always want to finish before the barrier, like all your debuffs land, especially defense break. But I go into the speed like during the gear checking part to know when you'll actually need it. And there we go. And here's the free alternative to Clarissa. Mine is a specialty change one because I used to use her a lot. I don't have a second Alexa, but honestly, all the specialty change did was like dramatically increase her cycling and then made her S1 like comparable to Sigret damage. But plain old Alexa is just as fine. Like, she does a crazy amount of damage with Daydream Joker on her S1 because it attacks twice against Wyvern. And then, of course, she has her chance to poison. And then this one does more damage based on how many debuffs are on the target. And all I did was transfer all of the gear from Clarissa. So you want the same stats as always, as much attack as you can get, but don't sacrifice for it really. 147 or 196 speed roughly. You want, what, 35% crit chance? You're gonna have too much. And then as much crit damage as you can get, and at least like 65% hit effectiveness. And that's it. And now let's do a quick rundown of all the gear you can buy. So going into the Conquest Point shop, depending on when you watch this could be significantly cheaper to do, because as seasons progress, each of these gets cheaper and cheaper until it's at like a permanent 70% off. And at 70% off, they're like 540 Conquest Points. That's pretty much what you can make in a day, I think, later on. So, HP, this is not a bad piece to buy if you're lucky. You want to kind of, I mean, if you hit attack, you probably have to use it on a unit for like PvP, but if you hit everything else, that's great for PvE, for tanks. This piece is great to have. That's even the one I'm using. This one is really great to have as well. This one is good. This one, I mean, this one's purely made for like bruiser. That's not needed. So the weapon, the chest, the helm, the boots, those are all great to buy. This ring could be good, not exactly for Wyvern specifically. The other four are fine. I mean, pen sets you might actually be able to use later on. Those are a little more complicated to go over. Speed set. So this ring for sure you're going to buy for Furious. This neck could work out. Like if because Crozet is just a free option and he's super good just for having that extra debuff, but it's honestly not needed. You could just keep using Montmo if you've already invested. Or if you just really prefer it, she survives just fine, and it's significantly easier to hit 200 effective resist on Montmo. Unless you're just really unlucky, then like Noble Oath is kind of like cracked for that. These boots are not bad. You can technically just run attack or a speed set on like Clarissa or Alexa. So this speed set, anything that has damage. Most of this is for tanks, I believe, not much for damage. Like it's pretty much just these boots. You won't need the crit set for farming yet. Like definitely not Wyvern because of Furious. This attack set that just passed is actually significantly better than the old one. Like this ring is like beautiful. This is like chef's kiss level gear. The same of the neck, as long as you dodge defense for the most part. This weapon's perfect for what you need. I mean, you could use crit damage instead of crit chance, of course, but you know, that's near perfect. These boots are basically perfect. Like, it's just missing a little effectiveness here and there, like on this helm. But this whole gear set, once it gets cheaper, because right now it's at full price, 1800. That's quite a, or yeah, it's quite a bit. This injury set comes with speed boots, so if you need speed boots for Furious, or you can afford to have a broken set for like Alexa or whatever, you can just grab these. These are pretty solid. They have the stats you want on your debuffer. They give speed main stat, that's all you need. Effective resist, of course. This ring is important if you're going to be using the resist the Wyvern strategy. These boots are great. Perfect statage. This helm is okay. You kind of gotta dodge the crit. This chest is basically the same. Dodge the crit. This neck is not needed, and I would not recommend risking on this weapon. So basically everything else in the effect resist store. I was hoping like the counters. I didn't remember anything about this counter set, so I was hoping you could actually use it for Crozet, because that would make the RNG of Crozet like countering to S1 and debuffing the Wyvern significantly better. But this is made like a purely DPS bruiser type set, so it's not worth it. In immunity, I mean, these are all like okay PvP ones, and then of course speed boot if you need it. So there's plenty of speed boots out there available. You generally don't want to use broken sets early for this, because honestly, like 20% hit or 20% effectiveness and like 20% effect resist is kind of huge at the beginning. And then of course here's the hit set. This neck is good. These boots are good. This helm is okay. I mean, these might be used later for like different strategies, maybe for like when I use Falconer Kluri in the other hunts. But for now, those aren't needed. And then of course this attack set. So this gear is from back when Arena gear rolled worse. So like now these pieces might actually like roll ridiculously well. So like this ring is okay. It's not as good as the new attack ring, but it's still pretty good. These boots could be good. This helm probably trash, I'll be honest. This weapon is probably not worth your time either. Like, yeah, it's kind of low statage. You'd prefer to have like higher overall. And then of course this HP set is from when like the first arena set was 67, so you don't want that at all. And then the new speed set that just dropped. So every single piece in this set, I believe, is like crazy good for either like a bruiser build or like Senya for PvP and like carrots, stuff like that. Like another speed pair of boots, and these are kind of insane. Like eventually, if you watch this like a season from now, these are all gonna just cost arena crest. You're not even gonna need the white one, the silver ones here that you get during the season. Every single piece here is pretty good, and that's about it. That's all the free gear you gotta look at in Conquest. I mean, if you've been keeping up with Arena, let me see. So eventually you're like mid-late game, you're gonna try and like camp somewhere in, can I look at the ladder? So, uh, is it Arena info? Here. So you're gonna want to, so you start in bronze. You should have, like, if you were doing the bare minimum arena, I honestly felt uncontested at all climbing through gold. And then when you hit masters, like that first week or two, like I'm kind of floating masters right now on the alts. People are attacking me every so often. I gotta kind of like fish for the weak ones to like make sure I get past them. As you can see, every week I would get 350 of these silver rewards. An arena piece is 400, so ideally you hit at least masters 2. But the end goal is to hit at least challenger, because at challenger it's a lot harder to fall out. When the weekly reset happens, you tend to like fall down 2, or you just hit the baseline like uh whatever tier 5 of the tier. So challenger is when you hit 490 constantly, and like, yeah, 600 sky stones as opposed to like 400 some odd. Like, I always pick the sky stones. Remember, the mystics are a bait. You're always gonna get more out of the sky stones as long as you have gold. So yeah, you wanna, so mid game would start right around when you're in masters. Like this is when you'll start running into people with teams that are too lazy or too afraid to climb, and they'll keep hitting you. It's kind of annoying, but this is your first benchmark. You'll be able to survive just fine. I'm using Free Spirit, Tyria, Furious, Sigret, and Montmo, and I can hold my master's position just fine. Mid game, you definitely want to push Challenger, and end game, if you're gonna just camp, you definitely want to push Champion. You're not being too aggressive. Champion is definitely where like all the higher level lazy people are, and like end game. If you really think you can do it, you could camp Legend. I would recommend making like a breakneck push if you have the resources on like a Monday to get Legend 1 for all the rewards, because first time rewards are huge, and then after that you can just let yourself get attacked and fall all the way down. Because I tried it once, I made it to like Legend 3 or so, but I also had work that day, so I had to stop. That was like an hour and a half of nonstop pushing. Because it's either you finish or you reach this equivalent or this point amount first. So you could be rank 1 because you're the only one there, but you need 5,500 points. Same with promotion between tiers. So that's just a heads up on that. Yeah, that's it. You should be keeping up with Arena just fine. At the end of week 1, probably at the top of gold. Start week 2, should be around when you enter Masters if you've been pushing it. Like, just remember, when you challenge, you should always remember to buy your friendship flags every day. Get an extra 5 worth of crests. Yeah, just keep pushing. Eventually you'll hit a like a roadblock in story. I think I'm in like episode 2, chapter 7 or something now. And that's when you start realizing you need different elements of units to push. You can't just keep using your Ice and Tyria team. It's kind of getting tough, because then you can probably finish it out, but you won't be able to get all the clear rewards until later. You're gonna double back. But for the most part, yeah. Once you finish episode 2, 10, finish Adventurer Ross's specialty change immediately, because I can probably just show you Ross. So Ross kind of becomes like the anime pro tag. This S2 now has a defense break on it. Let me see. Here we go. His S1 does more damage, increases his own combat readiness when he uses it. His S2 now grants immunity to the highest attack on your team, aside from Ross, of course, but there were some really weird edge cases with that, so they had to make sure it was except for the caster. And it has a 60% chance to defense break the target for 1 turn. So dual attack, defense break, ally comes in. That's huge. And it's soul burnable to have no cooldown, so you just keep repeatedly doing it. And then of course S3 now has a 100% chance to increase combat readiness of the caster by 20%. And then, oh, I could have just shown you with the other one. And then these are all the stats he gains. He gains 25% effectiveness. When an ally in the back row suffers a single target attack, that make it clear that's a single target attack. They get like tapped, and it does 30% or more of their max health. They get a massive barrier. This barrier is 40% of Ross's health. So as you can see, my Ross has 25,800. Oh man, that's like over 10k. That's probably like 10.3k or so. Just doing some quick math. And an average DPS has like no more than 12k, I would say. Like, and that's on the high end. They probably have closer to like 7 or 8. So yeah, Ross gets 20% base health, 6 speed, and effect resist of everyone up by 5. And honestly, just getting this, I'm debating if Ross is better or if Falconer Kluri or Specialty Change Arowell are best for story. Because Ross is great. Kluri is also good because now Kluri gets a lot of speed. It just randomly gets combat readiness by 50% at the end of your turn. Gets defense up. Her S1 increases the combat readiness of a random ally every time it's used. Increases combat readiness by another 5%. Increases damage dealt, and it's not important. Magic resist, let's see. Recovers health of everyone by 2%, so she now fulfills like the sustain role. You don't need a dedicated healer. If she's at max health, she gets a barrier equal to 5% of her health. It just keeps cycling because of how fast she is. And now S3 is an 100% chance to dispel all buffs before defense, raking, and provoking. And since it's a non-attack skill, this ignores like elemental resistance or bonus for missing. So it just needs to bypass the 15% effect resist check, and if you soul burn it, it bypasses that entirely. And yeah, this heals 10% of the caster's max health, so it heals her for 10%, and then everyone for 2%, and then the barrier. And then, of course, increases combat readiness of Flurry by 25% every time. Random chance to get 50%. I forgot what they nerfed about her, but she used to have like infinite cycling if she got really lucky, and it was kind of nuts to play against. And then the last specialty change tank I'd recommend for story. Well, maybe I'll talk about the other one too. So specialty change Arowell. So her S1, you just bash someone with your shield, 75% chance to dispel 2 buffs. S2, you now have escort buff. So escort buff is basically a free Aureus, but it's a buff. So it is dispellable, but for the most part, it's always going to be there. So 30% of all damage suffered by your allies goes to her. After an ally except for Errol is hit by a single target attack, it increases her combat readiness by 10%. And that has no internal cooldown. That's literally every time. So like a counter, a dual attack, all of that will keep pushing her. Attacks the enemy with a shield, dispelling all buffs, and an 100% chance to stun the target before granting a barrier to all allies. The barrier scales with Arrowell's health. So I don't know what the exact percentage is, but you usually will have like 20-something thousand HP. And that's for all allies. This strips all debuffs just like Kluri, but it is an attack, so it can miss. Unlike evasion targets, unlike Falconer Kluri's, but you don't have like elemental disadvantage. You just have whatever evasion it is, and there's very rarely any evasion in PvE. And of course, because she has escort, you can run adamant shield for double dipping into defensives. Her tree gives her HP, grants barrier to all light units on your team at the start, equal to 15% of her max health, which is huge. And then she has a bonus effect resist right off the bat from runes. If she doesn't have a debuff, she gains effectiveness or plus effectiveness. I think that's like 70% effectiveness. I forgot what the buff gives, but it's enough. And of course, attack of light allies up by 10%. So this is how they should have done it from the beginning, about all these elemental specialty changes, but better late than never. Her S1 increases combat readiness of herself by 10%, of course. Shield thrust has a 100% chance to recover her health by 5%, so she's self-sustainable. And then, of course, after using S3, the target is stunned. She has a 100% chance to decrease her own skill cooldowns by 1 turn. And then and the damage doesn't matter. So yeah, Arowell's kind of cracked. Her and Ross are probably the 2 leading tanks now. Falconer Kluri is definitely going to be mine for Expedition and for like Banshee and Banshee and maybe Osmotic. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I think I'll use Ross for Osmotic. So Falconer Kluri is definitely for Banshee. Probably no, I can use Ross for Golem too. So she might just be for Banshee and maybe the Labyrinth, like the higher levels when I get to that one. And then Pyllis is okay. Don't mind the artifact. I'm doing the side of it. Pyllis has increased hit chance overall in her skill tree, I believe. I'll go over it in a little bit. S1 has a chance to provoke. S2 is she's the anti-counter tank. So every 4th attack, she gets defense of all. She gives defense up to everyone. She increases her own defense. So when she S3s, it dispels 1 debuff from everyone, cleansing them of 1 debuff, provokes for 1 turn on the target, and grants everyone a barrier for 2 turns. And now here's her tree. She gets 3% HP back every turn she takes. Caster's health is 70% or more, increases effect resist by 60%, which is huge. Unfortunately, she uses Aureus, so that sometimes doesn't come back if you don't have the support. Increases combat radius by 15% after being attacked by an enemy inflicted with provoke or redirected provoke. So this kind of like cycles her through, so she heals over 3% every turn. Increases effectiveness by 25, increases hit chance by 30, so she's kind of anti-evasion. Increases speed by 6. When an ally, except for the caster, is attacked by counterattack, dual attack, or extra attack, has an 100% chance to decrease damage suffered by 30. So this one's huge. Like, she's really good against follow-up attacks. Weakening blow, so when she S1, she has a 60% chance to dispel 1 buff from the target. And then, of course, her S3 has it 45% increased. So I believe her total hit chance on S3 is 75. I think it's additive. I know people have been saying certain mechanics are multiplicative, like crit resist and crit chance. That's why, like, Zahak works against Shu or something in PvP if you max his crit. When the target is provoked after using her S3, increases combat readiness of all allies by 15%, so she can push everyone up. For the most part, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the knights I mentioned from the specialty change. All 4 are great, but Ross is definitely the easiest one. They literally give you everything you need for him for free. You don't have to pull him. Like Pyllis and Arowell are both Moonlight units, so you might not ever see them, at least early. Falconer Kluri is free, so Ross and then Kluri, of course, in that order then. And yeah, those are the units you should probably focus on for getting into the mid-game. Everything else, when you get, like, secure enough to farm, like, you're just, so you go through all your dailies, like, you should go into the labyrinth to collect your charms, talk to the merchant, clear Abyss, at least once clear Abyss, and maybe like tag a hunt 1 time, and then do like your guild dailies, summon your free pets, summon free, collect your Phantasma, and then do your promotions. That should give you enough. I mean, generally, I don't think you even need that much. So each of these daily reputation chests gives a different thing. You want to use definitely this one. Once you get to 20, you want to use this one right before you actually unload all your stamina. Everything else, I believe, is just bonuses. So you want to collect this one, 20-point chest. And then you want to go into the shop, buy all your energy that you can. If you have any expiring ones, this is when you would pop it from your mail. So you can set it by time left, go to the bottom. Well, I have it at the top. And then just unload on hunts. Just dump it all in there. You get 10% bonus gold from that chest for the next hour. So try and maximize that as much as you can. Of course, you can use that for stuff like side story. This current side story is not bad. It's got great, like, this artifact's really good for PvP. The free gear itself is kind of garbage. I'll be honest. Injury gears. I don't think there's a single attack unit. Oh, I mean, I guess maybe Mercedes kind of uses it, but everything else is kind of eh. Like, these are all nice. Like, you can't really look at free gear at the beginning and say it's terrible. Like, you don't know what great gear looks like yet. Take any freebie you can. Charms are your limiter. And then, I don't know. For this one specifically, I'm just going into here and getting nothing but charms. Because charms are always hard to get. Everything else seems... Friendship you can farm over time. Catalyst. If you need them, I would go for them. What's the last one? What comes in here? Oh, this is just random stuff. Yeah, this one I'm not even gonna bother. Like, this isn't even worth my time. But yeah. So when you're in the mid game, you gotta try and balance doing side story. Usually they're in like stages, so you do a week. Maybe grind out when you can. But you want to mostly use your 10% buff on hunts, and then after that, it's up to you what you want to do with your stamina. You want to always craft left side gear at the beginning. You want to make sure, because left side's always like easier to gear. Like, it always has one main stat. You're just rolling for 4 substats. They have limitations on what they can have. This gear, I believe, after like a whale ran through the stats, it's something like a 70% chance to turn out to be usable, versus like a 55 to 60% chance for the right side, and you can't even choose the main stat on the right side. So it's bad enough you're crafting for the set, and then you want the right stats. And then of course the epic crafting, it's guaranteed you get to pick the set. It's always perfect red, so it has maximum amount of substats, but it doesn't have the substats picked out. So definitely use those on the left side, especially at the beginning. Eventually, like late game or like Epic 7, I would always recommend maximizing like your team, and then whatever you need to clear content, and then you slowly expand. Like, you don't want to be trying to do what I have now. Like, I have all of these units built. You don't want to have like 100 some odd units you're trying to build simultaneously at the beginning. You might want to save gear, but you could just put that in the storage like this if you don't have the gear, like you don't know who's going to use it. So try to focus on your hunt. I would optimize it until it's at least at like the 85% threshold. Make it consistent. Like Wyvern, one-shotting versus doing it normally usually saves you something like 30 seconds, I'll be honest. It's probably not worth it over like consistency checks, because one-shotting is always like 85% roughly, because you need to debuff the defense break right away. Banshee's the only one that kind of matters for that. We'll probably discuss Banshee later. But, man, Banshee's such a slog the first few times, so we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I believe that covers everything I wanted to go over for part 3. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, that's it. See you then.